everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today, on this day, it's a wonderful day, an amazing day. I get to spend some time with one of these wonderful brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Today, I have with me Dr. Mateen Diop. He is a former principal with a career in education spanning over the decades. He is a brother of the Psi Alpha chapter, fondly known as the Alamo City Ques down in San Antonio, Texas. Shortly, we will hear more about his chapter and the work that he has done in education. But first and foremost, sir, as I always do, I take a quick moment to pause, say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time in your day to chat with little old me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for what you do, my sister. Honored to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, let me jump right in because we got a short amount of time and I'm going to pack as much as I can in today. So first, let me ask, how long have you been a brother of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated?
And, you know, there are some that say I'm a young brother. There's some that say I'm the OG, but I'm May 12th, 2001. So okay. I'm almost at my 25-year pin. So yeah, I came across those sands May 12th, 2001. So was that 22, 23 years somewhere in there?
Okay, all righty. So we so old. and where did you pledge at, sir?
Right here, Psi Alpha, San Antonio, Texas, my home. So it's a graduate chapter. We have one graduate chapter in San Antonio, Psi Alpha chapter, and then we have one undergraduate chapter, Alpha Delta Lambda, which is on the campus of the University of Texas at San Antonio. And then we have it's an undergraduate chapter about 40 miles outside of San Antonio in a place called San Marcos, Texas State University. That's Xi Delta chapter. So we have 3 chapters here that are pretty active, pretty strong, doing our thing for the community.
Okay, so San Antonio, just a nosy question. Is it a lot of us skin folk down in San Antonio?
7%. 7% African American, and like I said, about 89% Hispanic, and then other ones are just sprinkled in there. But yeah, it's and mainly the Black folks who live in San Antonio are all transplants. Most of them are retired military because San Antonio in particular, but Texas in particular, but San Antonio is a very friendly state when it comes to, and city when it comes to the military veterans. So we have lots of veterans that live here. Most of my frat brothers that are here, most of them are retired military or still active duty. And so yeah, that's what makes up most of us in San Antonio.
Okay. Now, before I get off of you and when you pledged, what was it about Q Psi Phi at that particular time in your life that made you say, this is the place I belong?
Yeah, I remember when I was a little boy, I had to be less than 10 years old. My teacher, my 5th grade teacher, Mr. 𝗙𝗘𝗞𝗏, may he rest in peace. He's in Omega chapter now. He came to school one day and he had his hat on. Omega Psi Phi, I don't know what it was, but that's what it was. And I think he was dating my sister. I'm not real sure. But one day that hat ended up at my house. I don't know how I got there.
It was
at my house.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I'm trying to figure this thing out. So I wore it to school one day. I just had the hat on and I walked into his classroom with the hat on. I had no idea what it meant. He pulled me to the side. He said, hey, I was Milton then. Hey, man, you know what that means? I said, nah, but his hat was at my house.
Oh, my goodness. Sis is not here to defend herself, so.
That's what I think. So I don't know, but so he took the hat from me as he should have, and with love though. He did it with love. I was only 10 years old, but he explained to me kind of what it was. But in my 10-year-old mind, I didn't understand it. Some years later, when I was in college, I came across another bruh who Kenneth Williams, who's also on Omega chapter. He was my college basketball coach, and one day he was giving me a ride home, and I saw the emblem, the Omega emblem, hanging from the rearview mirror in his car. And I asked him, what does that mean? And you're not ready for all that, whatever. But that it piqued my interest. And so when I went off to college, my best friends, they were all Omegas. They were all what we call the bros. And the camaraderie that we had, the friendship that we shared, just always wanted to be around each other. But at the same time, I always wondered, like, man, how can y'all do all these things that we do crazy things, but we're in the community, we're at church and we're at the mosque and we're doing all these things. and this is what I want to be a part of. So that's what piqued my curiosity. That's why I joined. That's why I signed on for life, not going anywhere. So they're gonna put me in the ground when it's my time. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying this entire ride with the brothers of Omega Psi Phi.
That's right, doing the work, boots to the ground, boots to the
Right.
ground. Now, I saw your chapter as I was being nosy preparing for today, and we're going to get into education quick, but I have one last question. I saw your chapter had a fundraiser on all white martini party.
Yes.
And as I was looking at the pictures, I was like, wow, that was a lot of people. That was a lot. You guys had a phenomenal turnout. But as I was kind of processing it, I said, that takes a lot of work. So then my next question is, how many brothers are there in your chapter? Because that was a lot of work.
Well, financial brothers, those brothers that actually pay their dues and all that, we have 231. But of course, citywide, there are thousands citywide, but financial brothers who have lived in their creed, 231.
That's a large chapter.
It's considered a large graduate chapter. So we have a very large house here. You living out in California, you can probably appreciate our fraternity house. We have a fraternity house that's worth probably $1 million. Wow. But it's huge. It's an old house that's in a historic neighborhood that we've kind of refurbished, and we use that as our house. So all of our meetings, all of the things that we do together, they're done at the house. Okay. So that's that. But that party, what everybody sees, of course, is the party having fun. But what people don't realize is that we raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for college scholarships, and we give them out. I, as an educator, I insist. And the brothers, that doesn't take much insistence because the brothers are right on board with that. But we give out, and every year as that party grows, the amount of money we give away grows. Mm-hmm. So I tell everybody, come to the party. It really is a good time. You're almost 3,000 people at the party, and it's a whole weekend. We have stuff starting Friday all the way to Sunday. All everybody ever sees is the party, but we have a party before the party.
Okay.
So we're going to add golf tournaments, and we're going to add some community things, components to it as well. But it really is a good weekend. But at the end of the day, what I love the most is that seeing the smile on the faces of those children. We handing out, $2,000-$3,000 scholarships. Our goal, our bossless's goal, is to give away over $100,000 in scholarships. That's his goal, to give away. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. But my brother George Mayer, our bossless, he's, Brother Diop, I want to give $100,000 in scholarships, and that's what we're trying to do. And our main fundraiser is the White Party. Every August we have it.
Awesome. Yeah, I was like, I was looking, I was like, man, I said, first of all, I didn't even know there was that many of us in San Antonio to be putting in a room like that. And I was like, wait a minute, these brothers, that's a lot of brothers. But
it is.
But so we know this is a fundraiser for scholarships, and you mentioned earlier the undergraduate chapters in the San Antonio area. You guys are responsible for babysitting those undergrads?
We are. Those are our little brothers. We are responsible for taking care and looking out for our brothers. They're grown men, but we look out for them.
Don't you think you need to do that paper right now? You need to
do it. We got to do as it is, and where out where you are in Los Angeles, our undergraduate chapters do not exist on their own. They have to have a graduate chapter, and I like that, because it makes them feel safe. And we're not doing, as graduate grown men, we're not out there wilding out with children and all that kind of stuff, but we're there to oversee them, but not really. They can still do their own thing, but we're there to make sure that they kind of stay the course and stay on the right course. But our undergraduate chapter here, there's some good brothers. The grade point averages, they're athletes, man, they're everything. So I'm really proud of them.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. Well, let me start picking your brain about this education system, because I got questions, I consider myself an auntie in the tribe. I got questions about my babies. Okay. And I was looking at one of your videos on I think it was your YouTube, and the title was Advice to Educators Teaching Black Males. I think if I got the title wrong, please forgive me.
I know what you're talking about.
But you were talking in that video about you're sharing your story, and you said the first time you picked up a book, you were 22, and it was the autobiography of Malcolm X. Great read, by the way. But what I heard was that you were 22 years old when you first picked up a book. And I have, I proudly say my age, I'm 54, and I have consistently heard this story over the course of my life, that Black boys, not only are they barely reading in school, but some of them are getting through K through 12 without even being taught to read. So as an outsider looking in, explain to us how this happens that our boys are able to go through this K through 12 process with, I'm assuming there's checks and balances and testing. How do they get to the higher levels and they can't read?
And so for me, that's a great question, my sister. I mean, for me, we just weren't, well, I'm going to say required to read growing up. I mean, we read in church and I know how to read. The question is, can you read with comprehension? And that's what I just never picked up. And most of the brothers that came up with me, we knew how to pick up a book, read the words on the page. When we got to school, we had to read whatever reading was tied to that particular assignment. So that we knew how to read. But when I got older, when I had this journey into the X phase is what I call it, and I picked up the autobiography of Malcolm X. Actually, a friend of mine gave me the autobiography of Malcolm X. I had never read a book a day in my life, ever, not from cover to cover, and especially not on Black history. So when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, I was like, wow, you mean to tell me that Black folk, we've done all of this stuff? We have all this history in this? I had no idea. But what it did is it basically engaged me to go back to my neighborhood. That's how I became an educator. Okay. And so when I finished my degree and all that, and I was in the military at the time. And when I finished my commitment to the military, I wanted to go back and become a teacher. And so when I went back to the same neighborhood I grew up in and became a teacher, then I began to see, oh, this is why my man back in the day when we were in school together, this is why he didn't do this or she didn't do that. It started to make sense to me. And what I realized about us and reading, Black men and reading, is that the books don't pertain to us. We're not in the stories. We're not in there. Okay. So when I pick up Mark Twain and when I pick up the books that they make us read, our stories aren't told. So it's like reading Chinese. Okay. I can read the words on the page. I can read Spanish very well. Okay. I can't tell you what I'm reading most of the time, but I can read it. Okay. And that's how the books are today in schools. They don't have us in the book. Okay. And when I went back and became an educator, I started doing, I was teaching Black history a long time ago. So even though Malcolm X and all that stuff was not in our curriculum, I threw it in there as an educator. I had the autobiography of Malcolm X sitting there. Okay. And so I would have a little brief assignment. I would take out a page or so, and I'd have kids in groups, and they'd have reading assignments. I never told them what they were reading. Okay. Here's a reading excerpt over here, and it's page 2 of Malcolm X's book. They had no idea. And then over here, I would have another book. Then I would have the required reading that the state wants them to read. I would have a little excerpt over here. But I would always throw us in because that's what saved me. When I saw me in Malcolm X's story, that made me become aware and say, you know what? This is what's missing. And that's when I became an educator and went back. So that's kind of how it is today. When I was a high school principal, our kids we didn't even have books, to be quite honest with you. And this was just 2 years ago. There were books in the school, there were books in the library, but our kids read what the teachers required for them to read. And the only time you got higher reading is when you were in those advanced placement classes or those dual credit classes, because there was no library in the classroom. I mean, kids came in and they were going to take the STAR test or whatever test they're going to take, the AP test. So all their reading was designed to be successful on those assessments. So, for example, English in Texas, we have English 1, English 2, English 3, English 4. And there are certain books tied to each grade level. So all that required reading, the teachers have that. And so the kids come in and you just break that reading up day by day. Here you go. Today we're going to read, page 2 of whatever book it is. So they would read that. And then the teacher would quiz them on that. And then that would be their reading. But there was nothing outside of that. Autobiography of Malcolm X was never in my classrooms when I was a high school principal. It was just not in there. So the teachers, and I never stopped them, the teachers had to have the creativity to bring the Frederick Douglass book in there. And they had to have the creativity to do that on their own. I couldn't go in there and go, hey, make sure you teach Malcolm X. I mean, that just wouldn't have worked. But if you had one of those teachers who was creative enough, they could do it. They start by putting posters on the wall and all that. That's good. But to understand who Malcolm X was and what he stood for and how he saved not just my life, but his death saved the lives of hundreds of thousands of Black men. His death saved us.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Listening to you talk, and I just remember being little, and part of the school day experience was the teacher would take us to the library and we had to check out a book to read. So I'm assuming that's just not happening anymore.
It does, but the books that are in there we're not in those books in the entire library. You're not going to find the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, the life-giving teachings of Nelson Mandela. You're not going to find that in a public school library. You'll find plenty of stuff on European history and all that kind of stuff, but we are not in there. Our stories are not in those books, none of them. And trust me, I've seen thousands of books on the shelves, and the kids will check them out because that's the time we get to talk to the girls, and we can sit back and let me go ahead and get this book. But we never read those books. But I guarantee you, once you start showing them that those stories pertain to us, Nelson Mandela's book, Frederick Douglass, Malcolm X, and the list goes on, Minister Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad. When you start reading those books, man, I'm telling you, it just opens your mind up and it stretches you. And you know what they say: once a mind has been stretched beyond its imagination, it can never go back to its original form. Yeah. So that's what needs to happen in our schools today.
Yeah, get some more relatable content. And you're down in Texas. Was it that teacher? Was she in Texas? She just got fired for teaching she read a certain book. I can't remember if it was
actually. That was way up in North Texas. And it wasn't even a book on African American history. I think it was more of the LGBT community.
It was Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank. She got fired for, and I was like, yeah. Anyways, we're not
crazy. That's crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, well, let me ask you this, because you have been in the education system for years, and you've seen many of our young Black boys pass through it. Some of them go this way and end up in the streets, and some of them go the other way and graduate and become productive citizens, be it getting a 9-to-5 or going to trade school or going to college. And I'm always, trying, as I walk around and I come in contact with educators, I'm always looking for the secret sauce. Like, what is it that we can do to package up and have more productive, positive outcomes? In your experience, what have you seen where, what happens more likely when a brother goes this way or that way in the education system? What's happening?
Yeah. One thing I realized as a high school principal, I realized that the system as it stands is not designed to catch students who fall behind. It's not designed. If you are that student who, and I don't know how it is in California, but in Texas, everything is, and when you're in high school, it's all based on class credits. You take 8 classes your freshman year. At the end of that freshman year, you should have 8 credits. Then 16, then 23, then, you should have at least 24 credits to graduate high school. Okay. Then you have to pass these STAR exams and all that kind of stuff. English 1, English 2, GI, US history and the like. If you fail just one of those classes, just one, let's say your freshman year, you take English 1, the class, and you fail it. Then you take the English 1 STAR test and you fail it. And then you take biology, the STAR test, all in your freshman year, and you fail any one of those, then you're already behind. And the system is not designed to catch you up. You have to get yourself caught up. What do I mean by that? That means when you come in for your second year, notice I didn't say your sophomore year, because by failing one of those classes, you have to have a certain number of credits to be classified as a sophomore. By failing a class your freshman year, you fail to reach that threshold of being called a sophomore. You're just in your second year. Okay. So you come in your second year. Now that English 1 class that you took and failed your first year, you got to take it your second year along with your English 2 class, right? So now you're in your second year of high school. You're taking English 1 and English 2. Let's just say you pass biology your freshman year. You pass the class, but you fail the STAR test. So now your second year, you have to take and pass English 1 and English 2, and you got to take the STAR test in both of them, and then you got to take the STAR test again in biology. That's enough to make a child just give up when you just fail. And that's what happens. And so the system, when I went in and I found out, wait a minute, kids become overage because you're in your second year, you didn't stop having birthdays. So you started your freshman year at 15. Now you're in your second year, you're still considered a freshman based on credits, but you're 16 years old. And if you fail English 1, chances are you're not going to pass English 2. Then you come back for your third year. Now you're 17 years old, but you only have enough credits to be classified as a freshman. So you begin to age out of the system. And in Texas, no net to catch those kids. And I gave them a name. I said, these are overage, undercredited kids. How can we catch these kids and boost them and get them to graduate high school? And I designed a system at my high school to do that. And we were actually very successful in that, but they had to get caught up. And that's what the system is not designed to do. Once you fall behind, then it's up to you to catch yourself up, because the system is not designed to catch you up.
Okay, so 2 questions. So to catch up, is it like an after school process or a weekend school process? How do these kids go about catching up?
So we have what's called credit recovery. So your English 1, you don't have to retake the class per se, but you have to take credit recovery. So with credit recovery is a class, but it's self-paced. So if you have, let's say you fail English 1 as a 9th grader, you come in your second year, you got to take English 2, the class. You take it the full class. But then your counselor enrolls you in what's called English 1 credit recovery. Credit recovery is on the computer. It's completely self-paced. So your first period, you're in English 2. Your second period, you're in credit recovery. So you're just in there. There's not even a certified teacher in that classroom. You're just in there on the computer trying to make up that credit. And remember, I'm giving you the soft side. We have kids who missed hundreds of credits. They've missed many credits. So their entire day is credit recovery. So what I did, my staff and I, what we did, I created a unit on campus. Basically, I used the old classroom. I had it redesigned and put some technology in there and a certified teacher. And I created a credit recovery room. It's all you do. So before you can take anything else, because these kids have already been in school 4 years, but they have all these credits, so they're not going to get caught up. So I said, okay, I was getting kids that had been in my school that were still on the streets. I was bringing them back in. You're going to sit here, and you're going to sit here until you make up all your credits. Now, remember, it's self-paced. So you can make up a credit, an English 1 credit. You can make it up in a day or 2. You just have to have the wherewithal and you have to have the discipline to sit there and do it. And that's where the teacher I had came into play. She was cold. I mean, this sister was bad. And she would just stay on top of them. No, finish. No. Don't go get on the phone. No. You're going to finish. I had bus passes. I was really, one of our city councilmen, he gave us bus passes so I could operate before and after school. We fed them school lunch and we did all that. They were still students, but you didn't go in a regular building. You're going to stay out here until you get caught up. And that's what she did. She stayed on, don't take those earphones off. No, sit here. And they were getting caught up left and right. And then after a while, the school district decided, well, we don't need that program anymore. And they did away with it. So that's what I mean. The odds are already stacked against us. But when you have a principal, when you have leaders on campus who say, you know what, these kids are more important than anything else, then you'll make it happen.
There you go. Because you don't want it's so hypocritical because society at large doesn't want the results of not having uneducated kids, but you don't want to put in the work while you have them, to educate themselves. But anyways, let me ask you, you mentioned the term age out in Texas. How long can a child, a young adult go to school before we say, you got to go?
They get up to, I believe it's 26 years old. They can get up, they can get pretty old. They don't do it, but you once they've dropped out, they've dropped out, but they can be on your rolls, on your books. I became a principal in 2018, a high school principal in 2018. And when I looked at my roster of kids that were aged out, they were already 21, 22, 23 years old, but they were still on my books because they didn't graduate. So they were considered dropouts and non-graduates and all that kind of stuff. So they'll keep them on the books forever. And that's mainly geared towards special education, special needs students who have those special needs. And that's who that law is designed for them, which is fine because they have these learning disabilities and these learning needs that takes them a little bit longer. Have no problem with that. But your regular able-bodied kid who comes in, who just refuses to do things right and refuses to come into the system and do their work, those kids unfortunately end up falling in that as well because they just get older and they turn 19 and realize that the kids that you came in, the cohort that you walked in this door with 3 years ago, they're graduating, they're walking the stage, and you're 19 years old and you have no chance of walking the stage with them. They got beards now, they have babies now, and they just say, you know what, I'm done, and they just drop out and you never see them again unless something bad happens.
our K through 12 is a little broken, but
Oh
you
yeah,
know, it's a
it
little broken.
definitely is.
Well, another one of the realities that I think most of us know is still here in 2023, the majority of teachers in the United States are white females, right?
Mhm.
And even here in today's time, when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and educating people on cultural awareness, in your experience, are these white female teachers able to step into classrooms with students who do not look like them and be able to leave their biases and microaggressions outside the classroom, or are students still having to wade through these waters in combination with the other struggles?
Some of them, and I've encountered several of my years of teaching. Some of them, very few, are able to go in and forget about all the biases and just teach. But that's very few. The teachers, the white female teachers who are teaching the advanced Black kids, the advanced placement, those kids that are taking those higher classes, oh, they can work well with them.
Okay.
Because those kids are just as bright as you are. I mean, well, it's when you're trying to work with little Ray, who's a little bit more challenging, and you have this teacher, the white female teacher, that's trying to reach little Ray. That's where the disconnect happens. And as a principal, I had to always come in, and I'm on the teacher's side, of course, because I need you're the teacher. But I'm trying to get the teacher to understand where little Ray is coming from. And I had this staff development that I used to do. I'm gonna ask you, Sister Reid, I'm gonna ask you. You're in my staff development, okay? I'm gonna give you the names. I'm gonna give you some names. Once you recognize one of the names, I want you to tell me the name of the TV show. Once I say a name and you recognize it, I want you to tell me what the name of the TV show is. Ready?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Elaine.
Friends.
Costanza.
What was that show? He was a
Kramer.
Yes.
What's the name of the show?
Seinfeld.
You got it. Seinfeld. Got it. Great show. Lots of laughs. Now I'm going to give you some more names. As soon as you hear a name, you tell me the name of the show. You ready? Pam.
Cole. Oh, Martin.
There you go. See how fast you. Now I did that with my teachers, and I went through as soon as I said Kramer, everybody said, "Oh, Seinfeld." I had to go through the whole cast of Martin, all the way down to Jerome and Fifth Flow, and they still didn't know because they don't watch Martin. And what I would explain to my teachers is, our kids, even though Seinfeld is hilarious, our kids don't watch Seinfeld. Yes. They watch Martin. Yes. So the kids that are coming in this door, they're Martin kids, not Seinfeld kids. Not saying that Seinfeld is not funny, but it's a different kind of comedy.
Yes.
So when they walk in the door and they're going, run me in the house, you take that as some sort of disrespect. No. They're just being funny because they saw Martin last night. Yeah. But if you don't understand where they're coming from, everything you do is going to be to punish them. So when you call me in as the principal, Dr. Diop, I came in today and little Ray was going, and I'm going, I was on Martin last night. Were you mad at that? And I'll go, what's Martin? And so as the principal, I have to bring in episodes of Martin and clips of Jerome and Bruh Man from the Fifth Floor to sort of bridge that gap between those white teachers and our kids.
Wow. So the teachers got homework on top of that. Okay, that's the lesson plan. They got to watch Martin.
Watch Martin. I would say watch it. It's just as funny as Seinfeld. But I get it. You see Black faces and think that you're not supposed to watch it. But we don't think like that. Funny is funny to us.
Yeah.
So but once I say, if I said how many jobs does Tommy have, what would Sister Reid say?
We don't know how many jobs. Does he even go to work? We don't even know if the brother go to work.
And you ask anybody in the Black culture that question, and we'll all give you the same answer. But if you ask white folks who are charged with leading us and teaching us, and you don't know some basic Black culture, you're going to have a disconnect there. That's why it's a problem. So as soon as little Ray raises his voice, you feel some kind of way because now he done stuck his chest out. Now you feel threatened some kind of way. But when I come in, I can tell you just how to deflate him. And with respect and love and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that. And those kids end up being tracked and they start hating school and all the data that happens after that.
Wow. Well, that kind of brings me to the next point. it's very clear that we need more Black men in this whole educational system. And there's only 2% that are actually teachers. I'm pretty sure there's less that are principals or in some sort of administrative role. And since you've been there, what would you tell a young brother who's starting his career? You know, maybe he's a teacher, but he's got his eye on, you know, I want to advance to being a principal or an administrator. What would you tell him, like right out the gate, that he needs to do to position himself for all of the challenges he's going to have to face?
The first thing I tell these brothers, and I still tell them that because I have a lot of brothers that are assistant principals now, not a lot, but a few. And I would tell them, I said, don't be pigeonholed into being the disciplinarian, because that's what they'll try to do to Black men, make us go in and be in charge of discipline. And I would tell them, I said, make sure you have some instructional acumen. Lead an academic department, lead the science department, lead the biology department, special ed, I don't care what it is, but be able to talk academics. You know, because if just by you walking in, us walking in as big Black men, the first thing they want to do is make us take care of the discipline in the classroom and handle the lunch duty and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, all the things that will get you promoted are given to the females, Black, white, or others. But the Black male, we're only looked at in one way. So I would always tell them, insist that your principal gives you an academic subject to lead. In high school, there are many. But if you're in elementary, say, you know what, I want to lead. We have these things called PLCs, professional learning communities. Tell them you want to have your own professional learning community and you want to discuss English or whatever the case may be. Whatever y'all are struggling with academically, ask the principal to put that under you and let you lead that. You still do your discipline, I get that, but make sure you have something that you're doing instructionally, and that's going to give you your bones as you start rising through the ranks. And when you become a high school principal, then you'll be able to talk instruction and not always, you know, some sort of discipline and behavior centers and alternative centers and all that kind of nonsense.
So have you found that there's a general stereotype and expectation that brothers walk in and be Joe Clark when you guys are in this leadership role?
It's funny, when I became a high school principal, that's exactly who I became, was Joe Clark, but it wasn't planned that way. It's just, that's the kind of high school that I walked in. I did. I found myself saying stuff. You used to call me Black man, now you call me crazy Joe. I found myself saying stuff and I didn't realize. I'm like, hey, why did that come out my mouth? But it took a crazy Joe mentality to lead the school that I was leading. And I looked around like, oh, wow, but it worked. So, but yes, they expect us again to come in and be the bullies in the pulpit. They don't expect us to come in and be able to talk instruction. They don't expect us to be able to come in and look at the data and go, you know what, we need to do this and that and move a school forward. They don't expect that. That's why you don't see most of us aren't principals and superintendents and whatnot. They don't expect us to do that. So when you do have a brother who is a high school leader or a district leader or a school superintendent or something like that, first, they say little things like he speaks so well and he dresses so nice and all that kind of. They never, ever, ever give him praise for what's in his head and how he's able to move a school district. You know, so I would always tell these brothers, first thing I tell them is beef up your academic game. And I don't care what subject it is, history, science, social studies, whatever it is, be able to move the needle in your area and move it fast.
Okay. Well, let me ask you my last question, and I think it's my last question. There's something else pops in my head. But we mentioned this earlier. It's very clear that in the United States, K through 12 education is in crisis. We're hearing it every day. Teachers are leaving in masses. And as a village auntie, I'm concerned about my babies in our communities that are already struggling with funding for the schools our kids are going to. Materials, programs are getting cut. So for the village that is situated around these schools and these students, is there anything that we can do to kind of make sure our kids, I mean, because sometimes we don't have the funding to pull them out and take them to a private school or homeschool even, because we got to go to work. So we need that structure. We need that public education system. Is there some things that we can do in our communities to make sure our kids get a quality education?
You know, ideally is what you said. One of the last things you said, ideally, you want to have your own system, be that a homeschool system, charter school, private school, whatever it is. You need a system that you control, what I call the four walls. You control it. That's ideal. It means you're getting funding from the federal government, state government, or whatever, they're about to pass, probably going to pass vouchers here in the state of Texas, so you can take public money and send your child to a private school. Okay. That's going to happen here. Like the Nation of Islam has Muhammad University of Islam in Chicago and Houston and other places, probably in Los Angeles as well. And so they have those systems work best for us. But absent of that, if you have to really deal with the system that your child is in, what I would suggest is, as a cadre of parents, that the principal, and I'm saying the principal, knows exactly who you are and what the expectations are of your child. Most parents don't know. If you're in the first grade, what are the expectations of my child when they leave the first grade? What grade are your children in? You the auntie. What grade is your tribe in roughly?
My baby is gonna be 29. Them days is long gone.
Okay. Well, you might have some grandchildren, or the tribe that you're seeing as an auntie.
Oh yes.
Yes. How old are those two?
It's the whole gamut from kindergarten. Yeah, from kindergarten to
kindergarten on up.
Yeah.
So what y'all should know is, when my child leaves kindergarten, what are they expected to know when they leave kindergarten? We always say, and you may or not know this, my sister, when a child leaves kindergarten and goes to the first grade, they should know how to read. Mm-hmm. When they leave the first grade, when they leave this grade, they should know these sight words. They should know this. They're called sight words. They should know and be able to do that before they even hit their next grade. Okay. You should know that as a village. Y'all should know, okay, these are all of our first graders over here. According to the state of California, when a child leaves the first grade, and you have to rely on that data from your state, according to the state of California, is every first grader should leave first grade knowing this. Mm-hmm. And so now you know when they go to school, they should be learning that. So when they come to you and you have Saturday school and all that kind of stuff, invite teachers out, be able to pay them. Don't ask nobody to do it for free. Mm-hmm. And pay your teachers to come out on a Saturday or whatever, but you're helping them with that. Okay. Those things. So when they leave when the first grade is they're going to leave the first grade, you already know what they know and what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And you should know that for every single grade that you're on. When they leave the sixth grade, there are certain standards that the state of California says they should be able to do and know. Y'all need to know what that is. Then you'll know how to target your assistants. And when they're with you on Saturdays and those types of things, your programs are geared to help the school and you're not working against them. And then what the school is not doing, African studies, African American history, then you add your own push in there. You know what, today we're going to study the life and times of Florida Evans, whatever the case may be. And you do that on a Saturday. But your instruction, your interventions are very targeted because you're aligned with the state of California and what the state of California says your kids should do and know at the end of each grade level. That's my opinion.
Elder or community village involvement. And I guess that's one of the things that, speaking to my age again and my parenting experience, just being overly involved.
Right.
My question is, are parents, especially in our community, are you seeing a lack of involvement? Okay, I guess that's the answer to my question. All righty then. Well, moving right along, sir. It's just it's not my experience. So, I come from a time where grandma could sit on the porch and discipline every single child, whether or not it was hers or not. So, I'm kind of from that generation. So to have parents not want to be talking to the teacher like, hey, where's the homework at? And I don't know, but you answered my question.
That's how it was. I remember, I'll tell you this last story and I'll shut up. I had as a high school principal, you always walk in the halls and all that stuff. So one day I was walking the halls and I ran up on these three girls. And it was 10 o'clock. We knee deep in instruction at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So they're walking the halls and I said, hey, what's your name? And I have my normal line of questioning. And one of the questions I asked them is, how many credits do you have? I'll go back to that. How many credits do you have? And if you can't tell me, then I know you're behind. How many credits do you have? And of course, they didn't know and all that stuff. So did my little spiel, y'all get to class, get out of the halls, blah, blah, blah. About 10 minutes later, a parent calls the school, wants to talk to me. Now, I never return calls to parents. You want to talk to me, you come up here and make an appointment and come and see me. But for whatever reason, this particular day, I returned the call to that parent. I called the parent. Yeah, this is Dr. Diop, or principal at Sam Houston, returning your call. And I did that because she just started cussing me out. You talked to my child today in school? I said, yes. What's your child's name? I said, oh, okay, yes, ma'am. He said, she said you asked her how many credits she have. I said, yes, ma'am. What business of that is yours, fool? What business of that is yours, fool, is what she said. What business of that is yours, fool? And I looked at the phone. I said, I'm her principal. I mean, you need credits to graduate. And then she hung the phone up in my face. So that goes to your question of, are parents engaged? That was one of my biggest concerns is, how come I can get y'all here for a football game or a basketball game, but I can't get you here on reading night? And certainly not going to get them there on Saturday. That's just not going to happen. You know, so
not showing up for open house, looking around the classroom to see what the teachers,
very few. We have teachers teachers are required to be at open house and parent night. Teachers have to be there. So I have teachers that are just sitting around waiting. How many parents did you see today? Nobody came by today. You know, and when they get to high school, the kids come to parent night and open house by themselves because the parents are hands off by that time. They don't even go to the school anymore. So, you know, I know K-12 is in a disarray and all that stuff, but it's not all on teachers.
Yes,
the whole village.
It's a village. It's a village. Yeah. And you know, I just remember, like I said, you know, speaking my age, please, you know, if you get in trouble at school, please don't call my parents. Please don't call my parents. I'll do whatever you didn't need to do. Please don't. And if your parents did get called, you know, she did what? Oh, okay. Don't worry about it. We got this at home. So
exactly. Not like that anymore. They tell you, call my mama. Never say call daddy, but they'll say call my mother. Oh. But the very few times I got to deal with daddy, I could get my point across to dad. He wasn't like that. He wasn't trying to fight me. Daddy was always like, all right, Dr. Diop, man, you know I'm gonna handle him. I need you to take care of him in school. And I'm like, I got you, bro. You know, but I need you to handle this at home. Daddies were good. Mamas and grandmamas in them.
You know, and for me, it's like it's foundation setting. You know, if kids don't get some basic principles, concepts, structure, when you send them out there into the world, you know, they don't know how to navigate the whole process. And a lot of that is learned in some of that boring, tedious, I don't feel like doing it school process. You know, you're not gonna want to feel like doing everything and complete your credits. But, you know, when you get out there and you get your job, you're not going to want to wake up every day and go to that job, but you got to do it. So
absolutely.
Anyway, let me ask you my random question, because I've taken up enough of your time, and I try to be timely. I'm sorry.
I appreciate
but, you know, when you talk about my babies, I just, you know, because we're so smart. They're so smart and so bright. You know, you just got to give it to them. Anyways. Could you give up access to the internet for a month?
Me? No. I can't give no.
You're my generation. What? We didn't have it. We had the phone with the long cord. I know you did.
Well, I have businesses that require internet. Okay. So I design websites, I do social media. So with no internet, you might as well just no.
Can't pay the light bill. We can't pay the light bill.
I got to have. It's like, matter of fact, if you ask me, could you go without water or internet at your house? I can do without water for a few days. I just get bottled water.
I just swallow.
Yeah. No, I can't. Yeah. Whoever invented the internet, hats off to you. They did a great thing.
It was a brother. It was a brother that I forget his name, but it was a brother that they say. But so, anyways, so sir, please tell us two things: how we connect with Alamo City Ques, and then I didn't mention you have some books and stuff out, and you do some consultation. So how we connect with you? Give us the whole spiel.
Okay. Well, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Psi Alpha chapter. You can reach us at www.psialphachapter.com. Psi is spelled Psialpha. Psialphachapter.com. You can find out all the stuff that's going on in the city, all the initiatives that we have going on, events we have coming up. Psialphachapter.com. Just a plethora of information out there. And to contact me personally, you go to my website, drmateendiop.com. You can order my book, my latest book, The Making of a Madman: How a Former Inner City Principal Was Shaped to Serve Through Motivation, Adversity, and Determination. I think you'll like it. It's a pretty good story. I enjoyed writing it. And my book before that was called Inner City Public Schools Still Work: How One Principal's Life is Living Proof. You can get both of those on drmateendiop.com. Follow me on social media at Dr. Mateen. That's across all platforms. So that's my spiel.
Awesome. I love it. Well, sir, I thank you for a few things. I thank you for being a wonderful man of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I thank you for being an educator and pouring into our future generations. It's just amazing work.
Thank you.
What are you doing now? Are you still in education now, or?
I am consulting now. So I have a grant that we got from the federal government. So I'm doing more community work. I'm leading, it's called Knowledge is Power. So I'm leading the efforts of 12 faith-based sites that are building after-school programs at 12 different churches. That's what they are. I call them faith-based, but they're churches. So I'm building 12 after-school programs, one at each of those sites. Congressman 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, thank God for him. He actually gave us money to make sure that happens. So I'm working with Congressman 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪's office, with State Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins, District 120 out of Texas, and a few local pastors. And we really are trying to be that cog in the wheel that we believe has always been missing, and that's the faith-based community as it relates to education. So I'm leading that effort here, and that's the biggest thing that keeps me busy now. So I'm working on that practically every day.
Awesome, awesome. Our next generation needs that education, So I applaud from little old me. Just thank you. I mean, anybody that's just thank you. Just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.
All right.
All right.